some of the largest anti-China voices in the West, especially in America, are actually Chinese people.
Yeah.
And they're Chinese people that have left China at a very young age. And it's kind of funny, there's this one lady, she's, I'm gonna say she's at least 60, maybe close to 70. Her name is Xi Van Fleet, right? And so she is like, her entire thing is she's running for political office, and every single thing is the Democrats want to do this, and they want to turn it into communist China. I know what communist China is like. I was born under Chairman Mao's rule, and I grew up in the rural China. And so my thing to her is, I'm like, when have you been to China, right? We've kind of had some little Twitter battles. She's just like, oh, you think you're a foreigner that's been in China, you know more about China than me. And I'm like, with all due respect, if you haven't been to China in 40 years, you're wanting people to look at China the way it was in the 1970s, right? Or 1960s, right? And you kind of you always try to bring it back to Chairman Mao times, under Chairman Mao, this is what happened. I'm like, okay, can we also acknowledge that doesn't apply anymore? Or are you just going to try to paint this picture that everyone's living under Chairman Mao's time? It's a different story. Things have changed.
And even during Chairman Mao's time, if you ask a contemporary person then compared to his life 20 years ago in 1930s, when life expectancy was 35 years old, he would still say there's a lot of improvement even within that 20 years.
For sure. I kind of relate it to, it'd be very similar to be like, well, in the United States, there was segregation. Black people used to not, be, accepted in society. There was different color bathrooms. Okay, can we also recognize that doesn't exist anymore? Right? Your entire mindset is based in 1962, and sorry, it's 2026. So unless you're coming here to China, and there's a lot of these. I think the other thing that's been interesting phenomena is a lot of the anti-Chinese, that are in America, they almost have to kind of take that stance to kind of justify their reason in being there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something that I see because. It's just like, oh, why would you go back to China in the summer, Cyrus? America's better. And I'm like, well, when's the last time you were back? And it's like, well, I got out of there a long time ago, 1981, and I've never want to go back. And I'm like, well, you probably should. You'd probably have a great appreciation for it. And I think that's where, when we're talking about China maxing and tourists coming here, again, I don't want to, turn this into a political thing. It's not like, you can come to China and enjoy the country, the people, the culture, the cuisine, so many things about China without having any opinion about the government. Just come and enjoy it, right?
I think in my response to your take, and I kind of said something like this in the previous episode as well, and I think a combination of both of your takes is that, the thing about China is that, yes, we have had a 5,000 plus year history, and there's a lot of elements of that history that are still applied today. And I think with the modernization of China, like you said, some of the restaurants, the malls that we go to, they're so modern. They literally look like spaceships. It's really like a glimpse into the future. But at the same time, not everything is becoming like that, right? There are hubs of modernization that looks in that specific way, but modernization is also different. Modernization is also the improvement of people's lives. And I think for me, the most important thing is that everyday people have more access to things. Whereas in feudal China, again, a very small percentage of the royalties or the emperors and empresses could access the good food and the lavish hanfu and everything. But now, because of 1949, because of the victory of the Communist Party, now we're able to see China not only modernize, but also maintain some of its cultural history, right? And everybody can access that. And I think that's really beautiful. So people come for the modernization, and they also come for the traditional history. And I love that it's a society where you can access both.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. 100%. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Speaking about, some of the anti-China Chinese people, can we pull up a tweet, an interaction that you had on Twitter that you sent to me? So this is you speaking to a person called Ken, if I'm not wrong?
Yes.
Could you contextualize this interaction that you had?
Well, there's a really interesting, maybe YouTuber or commentator on Twitter. His name is Ken Zhao. And he basically had a post where he said, I've decided that I'm not going to teach Mandarin to my children, and here's the reason why. Number one, if you learn to speak Mandarin Chinese, you are now subjugated to all of the propaganda from China. Your mindset will be changed to the Chinese government's way of thinking, and it's a very, danger, for the future of your children. And, honestly, he's like, for example, I think there's many better skills in the world to focus your time and attention on, whether it would be investing or playing tennis. You only have so many hours in a day. Why would you waste that, trying to learn something that is, deeply connected to the Chinese government? And actually it was really funny because, he was very much ratioed in this comment. I thought that it's sad to see someone so lost in their life, and that they will be able to whitewash themselves and just say, I need to make sure that my kids don't speak Chinese. That's sad. I feel sad for his children, because at the end of the day, you can go live abroad. You can say, again, I don't like the Chinese government. That's fine. You can have whatever opinion you want, but don't lose track of your roots. Like my mother's German. I speak German. I grew up speaking German with her, and, I'm very proud of my German roots, and I'm very proud of, there's a lot of elements that I'm very proud of in my Germanness. I have OCD. I'm very organized and detail oriented. That's very much from my German side of my heritage. And so, but learning to speak German is, it'd be similar. It's like, does that mean that I am a Nazi? That Adolf Hitler is, I now have an Adolf Hitler mindset because I would speak the same language as Hitler? Of course not. So we have to realize that this changes. And I just think it's very sad for someone to, basically make that opinion. And I just said, and he also said, he's just like, the other thing is that it's impossible to try to learn to speak Chinese and make money off of that. How could you actually make money by learning to speak another language? And I'm like, wow. I was like, I could actually refute that immediately, because I was one of the top teaching golf pros in China, where I would spend 10 to 11 hours every single day teaching in Chinese. And I've literally made hundreds of thousands of dollars, teaching golf in Chinese, and that was a skill set because I was able to speak Chinese. I mean, it's a very simple argument that you could easily win. But again, I feel bad for people that are so lost where, you're going to deny even learning your own culture, and being able to pass that on to your own children. That's sad. That's a huge miss for his children. I feel bad for him.
Can't you know? Because at least if you learn Chinese, you can still have a career at the CIA.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is sad. That is just so sad that he made that claim, because out of everything, I think he's trying to not only completely cut the roots for his children, make that decision for them, but also what is he integrating himself into? Right. What is he trying to be a part of? And I think that is a very strange, and I'm really glad that you stood up to him, because
well, I mean, it's kind of just sad.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，选择原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，它添加有羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good。请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版，新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。